What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Red and Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn, and our guy, Mike Andrews of Nothing But Niners. We're here to recap the 49ers 2023 NFL Draft. Before I kick it off to the guys, if you're tuning in on Twitter, head over to youtube.com/49ers Hive and join from there. It is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. If you're commenting on the stream on Twitter, we're not ignoring you. We just can't see it. So go to youtube.com/49ers Hive. Share your thoughts. We want to hear your guys' thoughts on this entire draft class, not just 49ers related. Share whatever you want to say. So come over here and hang out on Twitter, or excuse me, on YouTube. While you're here, hit like and subscribe, show support for the channel. Now that I got all that out, Matt, how you doing this Sunday evening?
I'm doing pretty good, Zach. Just trying to, I guess, get a feel for what the 49ers were doing in the draft. Little highs, little lows, lots of boredom waiting around for them to finally get a pick. But, it got interesting real quick. So let's jump right into it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was like, damn, they're still not picking, watching. But action started and it didn't stop till the end. Mike, how you doing this evening?
All is well, guys. I'm happy to be here, having a good time, an exciting time. I was supposed to be doing a recap show with Tony, but my schedule has been crazy, like so crazy where I thought like I was like late for this show. My time and everything has just been crazy, but I'm excited, man. I got a lot of good stuff to go over here today, and what I learned from this draft, you can be on either end of the spectrum with how you feel about it, and I think both thoughts will be justified. I really do.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of hot takes going out there on this draft. I've seen a lot of people salty, a lot of people hyped. We're just going to get right into it. And there's a lot going on in the 49ers world. But their first pick, Matt, what did you make of it? They took the safety Brown out of Penn State. Do you think this is a Jimmy Ward type, replacement? Or do you think this is more of a Huff/Gibson replacement or teammate? How do you view this?
It's hard to compare him to different players he hasn't played. I think I don't know if this is 100%, but I think the way you pronounce his name is Jair Brown.
Jair.
All right, there you go, from the man himself. It was good. I think it was a good value at where they were at. They took a position where you could argue it was one of the few that they needed in a really shallow safety class this year. Overall, I like the selection, and I wasn't upset with it at all. You get a guy who, has some issues in terms of not rapping all the time. He is a guy that likes to be a thumper. He is a guy that will lower his shoulder and put the boom on people. But if the 49ers have shown anything, it's that they can work with guys, and they're one of the more sound tackling teams in the league. So he has a lot of teammates, a lot of coaches that will probably have him wrap up. I don't know that he's that true like center fielder, but the way the 49ers play, it's that, they kind of interchange their safeties and have them play different roles at different times, depending on down and distance. I just think that he's a high upside guy that can compete. And, Tashawn Gibson's probably not here for long. He's a veteran that's getting, older as we go. And Jimmy Ward, obviously, it's just one of those things where they need more at the position. I think this was a good way to start things off for the draft. And I didn't mind what they gave up to move up for him. So if that's your guy, you go and get him.
Yeah, I agree. I was hyped when they made the pick. I didn't know much about him beforehand, but reading about him, seeing a lot of the breakdowns, athletic profile, I think he's going to fit in here very, very nicely. And Matt, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about Gibson. He was kind of contemplating retirement this offseason as it was, agreed to come back for the 1-year deal. He'll be turning 33 before this year starts. John Lynch, in the recap press conference, he said of Brown, he's a baller. He's got the components of what make up a Niner. He plays fast. He's good up towards the ball production. He's just a really good football player. Mike, what did you make of this pick?
First of all, Trenton, New Jersey is in the building. All right. I thought that was just phenomenal. Okay. Like, I like that. Was very, very happy about that. I think if anybody out there put together 100 different scenarios of the Niners' biggest needs for whatever reason, I think safety would have been at the top of most people's list. I would say 80 to 90% of the time, right? So I wasn't surprised with the position. And unlike a lot of people who do a just endless amounts of research on these guys, I'm more of the type to let's find a couple of guys whose names I'll familiarize myself with and see who's going to be in that range. And then, maybe I'll have an idea. If I don't have an idea, I have no problem researching these guys afterwards. And so that's kind of where I am now. Jair Brown was not one of the guys that I looked at during my process of safeties. And I was happy to see him come out here and look as good as he did. You see the breakdown. I don't know if you guys saw Baldy breakdown. He called him a Jimmy Ward replacement. I don't quite know if that's the case. But the one thing I did notice when watching some film on him is that he moves all over. You see him deep. You see him up by the line, so he is going to fit into this system where they're going to ask him to do a lot of both very well. Now it's about learning what he can do. And, the other thing I want to say about these guys out in the secondary is we have to see what Wilks sprinkles onto that secondary. What we might say is, oh, that's a bad play. It could just be new scheme, new design. So I think we're going to have a lot of patience with trying to evaluate this kid right away.
That's something I thought was pretty apparent at the end of the draft process was, in my opinion, it seemed like Steve Wilks, the new defensive coordinator, had his fingerprints all over this draft class. I believe they had 9 picks and 5 of them were defensive, 4 of them were offensive, or excuse me, I think 3 were offensive, 1 was special teams, and we'll get into that one next. But I'm excited. I really do think that Brown is a guy who can come in and, probably won't start right away, but I think he can contribute as a situational, role player. With that pick out of the way, Matt, we got to get to the next one, which certainly caused 49ers Twitter to go crazy, right? The 49ers then drafted kicker Jake Moody, 99 overall. Look, I mean, in his defense, he connected on 52 of 60 field goal tries over the past 2 years. But is drafting a kicker at the 99th overall pick ever acceptable, Matt? What's your take on this?
My take on it is, who gives a shit? It's going to go one of 2 ways. Either he's going to be really good and nobody's going to care that he was selected there, or it's going to be really bad, in which case everybody's going to flame them, rightfully so. This is one of those picks that where, like the Trey Lance pick, if Trey Lance works out, who cares that you traded all that stuff to get him? If he doesn't work out, why would you trade that much to get him? And that's just the name of the game in the draft. They obviously had a need for a kicker. People will point to Zane Gonzalez, but that dude's coming off of an injury. We don't know what he is coming back. He hasn't even stepped foot in the building really to practice with the team. He was just kind of throw it out there and fill the roster spot. And him and Jake Moody are going to compete. And we're going to know real quick whether Jake Moody is going to be worth that or not. Now, I thought he was one of the probably the top option as a kicker in the draft, but it filled a team need. And if he goes out there and he's money, like you hope he is, then nobody's going to care that they took him 99 overall. They're going to forget about it. People forget that Sebastian Janikowski was a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
And he was with the Raiders for probably 10, 11 years. And there were some ups and downs, but by and large, he was a consistent kicker for them. Yeah. So I don't think they look at that as a wasted first-round pick, all things considered, with everything that was going on. So if he performs like he should be expected to perform, and he performs up to his potential, and we get something out of it that's, similar or even maybe better than Robbie Gould, Robbie Gould with a little extra range, nobody's going to care that it was 99 overall.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good point. And I think a lot of people took Gould for granted. And now that he's gone, that reliability, that consistency went with him. And the 49ers clearly were trying to solve this problem. Like you just mentioned, they traded for Zane Gonzalez, but even he's kind of got a shoddy record. So they go out and get the best kicker in the class. And I know a lot of people are comparing this to the Bucs drafting Robert Aguayo, but I don't really think that's the same scenario. Now, I also see people saying, oh, we just got the next Justin Tucker. Let's pump the brakes. Let's let the kid take an NFL snap first. Mike, what's your take on this pick?
Yeah, you mentioned Aguayo, and I was going to do that to counter Matt. He was saying first-round pick, ended up playing for the Raiders for multiple contracts. And I was going to say the flip side is Aguayo didn't finish his rookie contract, right? The most accurate college kicker, if I'm not mistaken, in history. And he didn't even finish his rookie contract. Now, the pick itself, I like to save something when I know I'm going on other people's shows. I haven't said this at all. This pick to me was very telling. I think the 49ers have someone in the Patriots special team scouting department that they're really, really close with. I'm going to tell you why. We made this pick. There was all the outrage. Oh, my God, you made this pick at 99. Okay, well, we could have waited to what, 101, right? Maybe we could have waited to 101. But we didn't have a fourth-round pick. And our fifth-round picks were all comp picks at the very end of that round. So that means this guy had a fourth-round grade on him. We probably weren't going to get him. The Patriots traded up 8 spots behind the 49ers pick of him to draft their kicker. And I don't know if you guys remember, just 4 seasons ago when we drafted Mitch Wisnowski, the Patriots traded up and picked a punter. It's almost like the Niners know when the Patriots are eyeing a guy and they get him right before the Patriots go out and do it. So I thought that was phenomenal by this team to go out there and use one of these, because the truth of the matter is 99 and 101, no matter what happened, they were going to say, you used a third-round pick on the kicker, you can't do it. I completely disagree. If you believe he's that guy, you should do it. All off season, everybody said we should sign a veteran and we should draft the guy and let them compete and let the best leg win. That's exactly what the 49ers are doing. We would be ill-advised to crucify them for doing exactly what everybody felt they should do.
I agree 100%. Also, I just want to add, this is basically what Kyle Shanahan said too. And in the recap press conference, he said it was so nice going into the draft this year with the feeling that we didn't have to find a starter at any position except for kicker. We feel like we can win with our guys and that we're going to do our best at every pick we have to find somebody who can make the team and then somebody who competes and makes the guys we have better or even beats the guys that we have. You mentioned, Mike, to start the show, safety would likely be near the top of the needs for this team, but kicker arguably is right up there as well. So when you're drafting these positions and you think, who can we find right here who's going to have the biggest impact? I think there's an argument to be made that kicker should have been and was the correct choice here. But like Matt said, it's always going to cause a storm when you take this position this early. But that's a great point as well, Mike. I didn't even realize the Patriots connection there. So maybe they do have an insight there. Anything else on the kicker before we move on?
I mean, I just think that it's something that it's easy to sit there and criticize what the team is going through and in their draft process and say, oh, they took that guy too high. This is a team that's returning 19 of 23 starters from an NFC championship team. So 19 of 22, excuse me. And it's, you're trying to take best player available and balance that. This was not a straightforward draft, right? This is not a draft of a team like, for instance, the Houston Texans who could trade up and take Will Anderson, go back-to-back 2 and 3. They have more needs than, probably any team out there. So it's hard to, mess that up in terms of, you might not get the right guy, but for value for slot, CJ Stroud number 2 makes sense. Trading up to get an edge rusher makes sense given all the holes that they have. For the 49ers, it's much more difficult. You're trying to, get the best guy available. Maybe, you don't want to reach too much on, like Mike said, they probably a 4th-round grade on Moody, right? The Patriots were going to go up and get him. 49ers probably had a 4th-round grade, but they were like, out of the other needs that we have, are there any guys at this pick that would be less of a reach than what we're thinking about doing with the kicker? Everybody goes, oh, kicker 3rd round is a reach. Well, maybe the next guy was even more of a reach in their mind, in their valuation, and their grade. So I think that they took best player available and just kind of went from there.
Yeah, well said. Go ahead, Mike.
And just one more thing really quick, too. I don't know how round grades are assigned to people, but the number of picks also means something, because this was, again, compensatory picks, and there were a lot of 3rd-round comp picks given out this year. If you do them based off of just number 1 to 32, 33 to 64,
right?
This guy would have ended up being a 4th-round pick.
Pick.
Right. So I don't think that it was a bad pick at all.
Yeah, you're talking if there were no compensatory picks, round 3 would end after the 96th overall pick. So he would have been the 3rd pick in the 4th round with no comp picks at all. But yeah.
All right. With that said, the 49ers' 3rd pick of the 2022 NFL draft was tight end Cameron Latu out of Alabama, 6'4", 242. Also was at the latest tight end university from the reports I saw of George Kittle this offseason. We've been begging them to take a tight end to pair with George Kittle. Matt, is this finally the guy? Do you think he'll develop into somebody to do a nice 1-2 punch?
No. He's not a particularly good athlete. He's not a particularly good blocker. He's a red zone threat, and that's about it. That's all they're really hoping for out of this guy. Mike has said it before. Really, Brock Purdy. George Kittle wasn't that much of a red zone threat. So if they can get down there, that's going to be those tight sets down near the goal line, and he's going to be a more physical guy than what they have on the roster in terms of, even more so than George Kittle. Cameron Latu was a converted defensive lineman. So he was recruited as a defensive lineman and then made the switch over to offense. He's still learning the position, but he's a guy that's just going to be physical, and that's what you want. He's going to be a goal line guy. If he can get better at blocking, which I'm sure they're going to try to make him do, then he's going to fill that valuable tight end 2, tight end 3 type role. But don't expect somebody who's going to overtake George Kittle. George Kittle showed off his athleticism at the combine, even if the production wasn't there. And Latu is like a 4.78 or something like that. Just not acceptable in today's day and age of, defensive linemen running 4.4s and 4.5s. It's just not going to cut it. But if he can do something down in the red zone, that's all the 49ers can really expect.
Yeah, it is. They we'll get into it later. They took another tight end H-back type guy. Mike, what's your take on him?
Just a brief one is that the hands catching, right? He likes to pluck the ball out of the air with his hands. Doesn't use his body much. And I'm wondering if there was input. You talked about the input from Steve Wilks, right? With the first pick with Brown. I noticed on the phone call that they released with the players and the players talking to the different coaches and owners and all, Wilks said, you convinced me during the meeting. We saw the tape. We liked what we saw, but you convinced me. I think that was a Wilks pick, right? I think maybe, just maybe, I could be wrong, maybe George Kittle had some influence on this. From my understanding, I think they said there were 3 prospects that made it to tight end U with George Kittle and the veterans. So maybe George Kittle had some influence on this guy. Maybe the Niners asked him, hey, what'd you see from this guy? How attentive was he? How did he take the coaching and things like that? And that's, again, when you're not looking for starters, when you're not expecting starters, that's what you want to know, how coachable these guys are. And if Kittle had any influence in any saying that, I'm sure that the team valued that information and said, hey, you know what? Let's take a flyer on this guy.
Good point. I guess we'll see what he turns into. I'm just happy they took a tight end at all.
They had to do something, right?
Yeah.
Because the guys in the building, Charlie Werner and Ross Dwelly, they've been here for years, but we haven't gotten much production out of them. And I know he's continues to get flamed for what happened to Brock Purdy, but Croft being in there in a blocking down on play action and getting a lot of PT in the playoffs is kind of indicative of what the 49ers think of the incumbents that were already in-house. So they had to make some sort of change somewhere. And again, it's how do they value a guy? And I wouldn't be surprised, Mike, if you're right, if George Kittle did have some say in that and kind of, spoke up for him. I think he was one of 2 college tight ends invited to tight end U this year. So there's obviously a connection there, and I wouldn't be too surprised if Kittle was pounding the table a little bit for him.
Yeah. Speaking of the tight ends on the roster outside of Kittle, you got Charlie Warner, Ross Dwelly, and there's one that you just named that is slipping my head, but Ross Dwelly was
Tyler Croft.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think Tyler Croft is a free agent.
He's gone. Okay. So Kittle, Warner, Dwelly, and for most of the end of last year, if I remember correctly, Dwelly was inactive anyway. So they desperately need somebody else to pair with Kittle. We'll get into the later tight end pick. But so far, like I said, I'm just happy they took one. We got a super chat here before we get into the next pick from our guy Sean. He said we took a kicker in the 3rd round in the '94 Super Bowl year. Brian from Cal was great that year, then flopped the next, and we cut him. Hopefully he doesn't get cut. Thanks for your contribution. We appreciate it, Sean. All right, the 4th pick the 49ers took in the 2023 NFL Draft. Let me see. I just had it here. Darrell Luter from South Alabama, a cornerback. And this is one I'm a little excited about. And I think that this is definitely one that Steve Wilkes had a heavy input on. I'm going to switch things up. Mike, I'm going to go to you first. What's your take on this pick?
I mean, I don't want to say the same thing for each one of these guys, but I have to stress depth, right? We have to keep that in mind. And my biggest concern with this guy was the number of penalties. He has a very aggressive style of play, and I think Wilkes likes that in a guy, but he's got to learn to. Again, it's going to be about coachability. If we can teach him when to be aggressive early, the 5-yard cushion that they give you and all that, and then you got to kind of have to back off a little bit. But he is a guy that can run stride for stride with the receivers and things like that, and can be a guy to fight for the ball during contested catches, and that's what we want to see. We want to see more of that aggression, there. And the best plays, in my opinion, of Charvarius Ward were those kind of plays where he's right there and he's hand checking down to the ground, just trying to get the ball away. You're going to see a lot of that from Luter. So I like that. Again, just gotta watch the penalties.
Yeah. I'm not as familiar with these later round picks. Obviously, this year in general, I've kind of been a little removed from the draft, and I'd like to be just because of what I got going on. But reading up on these picks afterwards, this guy had pretty impressive press coverage from the reports I've read. Allowed like a sub 20 passer rating when targeted in press coverage. And the 49ers, outside of Charvarius Ward, maybe you can argue Lenore Thomas, it's a pretty steep drop off. So there's going to be an opportunity there for him to compete. And guys, we don't want to keep telling you, promising he could be this. It's all perspective, right? They're all draft picks, so we're not going to go too in depth in these picks. Matt, did you have anything to share on this selection?
Yeah, I mean, 5th round seems to be where they like to get a lot of their cornerbacks. Womack and then Lenore the year before. I feel like they have, a type of player that they like for that corner spot. He is a pretty good tackler from everything that I've read. But here's the thing: this pick, particularly right here after the Cameron Latu pick, this pick, along with I'd say the next 3 or 4 picks, was a run on people who are just very athletic. They might not fit, they might not fit a certain mold. They might be players that are tweeners or undersized, which we'll talk about, but they're guys that are athletically gifted, and they're like, what is it, the P-Spark score, the athletic score, or whatever, it tends to be pretty high with them. I know that Luter is like a long guy, 33-inch arms from what I was reading, but this is the run on like traits, physical traits, guys, whether they're fast, whether they're big, whether they're, whatever. This is where I feel like they started to go.
Yeah. You brought up the physical score. I'm going to bring this up, the relative athletic score. Let me get this overlay off the screen. And Darrell Luter, no surprise, he was the highest ranked one out of all of this. This is per Math Bomb on Twitter. He puts out all these charts, really, really good. So they took a very athletic corner with this pick, and I'm excited to see how it shapes out, because the 49ers, just like the tight end position, desperately need some depth in that corner position.
I'd love to see what goes into this particular score, whether or not they account for certain things. Because D. Winters being a 5.71 is very interesting to me, and we'll talk about him shortly.
Yeah. I wonder if he has his formula on their website. Mike, did you have anything to add?
No, nothing on that one, no.
All right. The next pick the 49ers made was Robert Beal Jr., defensive end from Georgia. This is another 5th round pick. And the 49ers, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, I should say, kind of kept referring to GTFO when it came to Robert Beal. He got off the ball really quickly, got off the snap really quickly. They were impressed with his motor and his speed. I'm sure something Chris K loved as well. I'm sure he had his hands on this pick. Matt, I'm gonna throw it back to you. What do you make of this one?
Again, another athlete. And again, I don't know what this 7.43 score is. He ran a 4.44 second 40-yard dash, and he has 83-inch wingspan. So he's got speed and he's got length in his arms. He's a raw guy. He wasn't like a world beater. He wasn't really a starter. He's more a rotational player for Georgia. Not really the household name that you expect. But again, Georgia, SEC school, they're going to have a lot of diamonds in the rough. And if Coach K can really kind of mold this guy, he could be a situational pass rusher, I think, and contribute. And he's going to be probably like a lot of other 49ers draft picks, where this rookie year is a redshirt year where the coaching staff is going to say, all right, this is what we love about you, and then this is what we want you to improve on, and you're going to spend the entire first year improving on this thing so that you can have a shot to be in the rotation next year. This is kind of like where, again, it's more of these traits guys, and they're going to try to mold them to fit the team and fit the position, and they're going to try to hone their talents best they can. But beyond that, I don't know much about them. But this is again complementary to the rest of the defensive line. You just bring in pieces that you think you can shape and turn into something. And for the defensive line, I think this is a decent pick to kind of take a chance on. He's a raw talent, but the athleticism's there, and you can't teach speed, and he's got it.
Agreed. Mike, what any take on this one?
No, I like the you made reference to the GTFO. I like Lynch being uncomfortable trying to explain what he's like. You guys know what that dance, right? And he's like, yeah, it means like the get off. Like, no, you can say what it means. Like it's okay. Like, he's trying to be Mr. PC up there. But you like that. I went back and was looking at some of his film after the draft, and he does have a quick first step when he knows what his assignment is, like when it's the green light to go, right? And then there's other times where he was very hesitant. It made me wonder, was he reading something first? He wasn't always the first guy, but that first step is very, very telling. It's there. It's explosive. And I think that the Niners they might have something here. If they can hone the skill and get the best out of them, the Niners could really, really have something. There was times where his first step, on the clips that were on the positive side, it almost looked like he was going to be off sides. He was jumping so quick. And if you watch, I don't know if he's watching the ball, if he's listening for the cadence or what, but whatever it is that he does it well. Now it's time to bring that out of him and make it consistent. This guy had, 48 games in college and well over 30 tackles for loss, not counting sacks. I think he's double-digit sacks throughout his college career as well. Gets some PBU, so even when he can't get there, he gets those hands up. And he has a couple of picks also. So I liked what I saw from him.
Yeah, and to your point, the 49ers are a team where they tell their edge rushers, just pin your ears back and go after the quarterback. And so what you're talking about, that hesitation, maybe he's trying to read something, that could be a wrinkle in the Georgia defense that they really want them to, whatever. But if you're on the edge and they're playing and they're, on this front, they're wide nine, whatever they're doing, and you're just going after the quarterback, that speed is going to be a real asset if you could just turn him loose and, not have him think and just, hey, man, make your move and go get that guy. That's going to be a valuable asset. And that's why I think, early on, he's going to be a lot like what they were doing with Drake Jackson last year, where they sprinkle him in on obvious passing downs, somewhere where his athleticism is going to be, a plus rather than, oh, he's over pursuing and we have to worry about, cutback lanes or everything like this because it's 2nd and 4. And yeah, they might pass, but they might also run the ball too. No, this is a guy where you put him in 3rd and 9. It's obvious they're going to have to pass and you're just rushing the quarterback and trying to get him pinned down there. So I do think the 49ers have a diamond in the rough here. It's just how they develop him. And Coach K, I mean, his resume speaks for itself. I mean, he's turned lemonade out of lemons for quite a number of years now.
Yeah, I'm also just, I don't want to say happy, but maybe surprised that it took them this long into the draft to address the defensive line. seems like it's been forever since they've waited until the 5th round to take a defensive lineman. But here we are. Maybe that speaks positively to how they feel about Drake Jackson and, and company. They did have a couple of free agent signings this offseason on the defensive line. So we'll see. But maybe they feel comfortable. On the flip side, we'll definitely get into what this draft meant for the offensive line, but we'll save that for after. Next pick, round 6, number 216 overall, linebacker D. Winters out of TCU. Obviously they lost Azeez Al-Shaair in free agency. Somebody's got to step up. Any thoughts on this pick, guys?
Yeah, he's another athlete. He 449, and he was a guy that if he's going to make an impact on this team, it's going to be special teams right away. As a gunner, he's going to go down there and cover punts and kicks. I think he covered punts with TCU, something that I was reading, but he had like a 1.54 10-yard split, which is really good. He gets off the ball fast. I think he's a little undersized. He's 5'11", 227, which might be a little light for an actual every down linebacker or somebody that you want to head out there. I think he's a little smallish to necessarily replace Azeez Al-Shaair or even compete with Oren Burks or somebody like that. But I think, again, speed kills. And if you can get this guy on special teams, and it's one of the areas of the ball that people seem to forget about, but that has been a bugaboo for the 49ers for a while, is giving up good field position and then not getting field position in return, which is why I hope Ray McLeod shows me something this year. That being said, this is a straight up, this is a special teams pick. And so if he can make an impact on special teams, he can definitely, earn himself a role. And we've seen it countless times before with these late round picks and undrafted free agents. To my mind, Terrell Davis comes to mind as somebody who made an impact on special teams and was able to turn it into something. So he has the speed, he has the athleticism, a little undersized, but I think he'll be able to do something on punts and kickoffs.
The speed for sure. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I want to apologize. I was talking about Winters last time, so I was a player ahead. I apologize. Those stats and everything that I read were for Winters, but I will add that I like the fire and the spark and passion he plays with. When you go and you look at his film, he is a very, very passionate linebacker. So I like what I saw from there.
Yeah, no problem. I think Matt touched on it in his recap, but 4.49 40, 7.5 sacks last year, some production, some speed. It's just a nice addition to the defensive line, even if he doesn't crack it to the middle linebacking field. A lot of comparisons to Dre Greenlaw, same height, same size. He's the younger Greenlaw version. All right, so now we're all the way into the 7th round. Number 247 overall, and they draft tight end Braden Willis out of Oklahoma. They took Cameron Latu earlier. Now they take an H-back type in Braden Willis. And just my initial take is this is Adam Peters, right? This has to be Adam Peters all over this pick. Matt, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is a guy to me that's going to sit on the practice squad until Kyle Juszczyk retires. He's way too small to play tight end. He's not going to play tight end for this team. He's I don't know, 6'2", 6'3", and only like 230 pounds. It's a little small. You're not going to put him in there, to block a defensive end on the line. But if you put him at a Kyle Juszczyk position and use him in the run game to chip, then he becomes more valuable. I just don't think that he's going to be, a guy that you're going to split out wide and run routes with like you would a George Kittle or somebody like that. And again, you're looking in the 7th round and just trying to find something, right? All these teams are just trying to find something. So I just think that, if they can get him on the practice squad or, something like that, maybe even again, special teams, is this something that he can help on special teams? But if you're relying every year for all of your 7th rounders to make a huge impact, then I think you're drafting wrong. So you're just taking a chance on guys who have at this point obvious flaws. There's obviously something. So we'll see what happens. But from this point on out, I think it's pretty safe to say that these are definitely like practice squad or like fringe roster guys that may or may not make it through camp.
Mike, any disagreement there?
Not at all.
Okay.
You got to build the 99. You have to. And we went out and signed a ton of UDFAs and also, I mean, that's basically where we are at this point in the draft. Matt's 100% correct. During the live, Tony, not just Tony, but a couple of people were harping on the why not him earlier, right? Because if you look at the stats, he had better stats than Latu. However, if you go back and really look at it, no, it's not the same. This guy's really slow. When I say slow, he runs like like an offensive lineman. Like he's kind of like he's like heavy-footed and things like that. But he doesn't have the strength of an offensive lineman. He's very, very. The word I would use is sluggish. And so I don't know what's going to come of him, and I'm not taking anything away from him. The one thing I constantly remind myself of, especially when more negatives pop out than the positives, is that these guys aren't finished products. So everyone, including the team, they're going to have some patience if they want to see who these players can truly be. So he's not a finished product by far, and a lot to work on. It's going to come down to coachability again.
Absolutely. And to your point of stats, I mean, if stats were a thing, then I mean, George Kittle doesn't end up anywhere because I mean, he had so few catches in college and then turned into one of the best. And as for Braden Willis, it's hard to gauge and say, oh yes, he has better stats than Cameron Latu or whatever. But I mean, that Oklahoma offense that's just a boat race offense in the Big 12 right now where nobody plays defense. And that's just the way they play. So of course, against a lot of these teams, he's going to look better or get these stats because that's just the way that they spread that entire offense out. That's how they do things. If you're worried about the guys outside like Marvin Mims or somebody like that, then obviously Braden Willis comes open. So, yeah, I think stats are very misleading, particularly in college, just because of the level of competition and the discrepancy of competition between teams, even amongst Power 5 schools.
Yeah. Bringing up George Kittle, that was my exact thought. I mean, he had very, very little stats, and it was just something that the 49ers coaching staff saw in him, and they were luckily right. All right. We have 2 picks left, second to last, 7th round, number 253 overall. Wide receiver Ronnie Bell out of Matt's Michigan. Matt, any insight on this pick, being a Michigan fan?
Yeah, I like Ronnie Bell. He had a torn ACL in 2021, so he missed that season. He was able to come back and have, a nice season. After that, I think he had almost, he had like 900 yards receiving or something like that. He's a smaller guy, 5'11", like 185, 190 pounds. Not the fastest in the world for a wide receiver. It's a 4.5 40, somewhere around thereabouts. But I do think that he's polished in terms of being a player, and he's somebody that could push the bottom end of that wide receiver group, whether it's Juwan Jennings or somebody like that. I think he's a little more athletic than Juwan Jennings is, although Jennings has the advantage in the height and weight category. It's just another guy that, is fringe roster, maybe practice squad guy, and you just bring him in. I mean, they need to carry 6 wide receivers, so you want somebody to come in and push the end of that roster spot. But I don't know. It's hard to see him beating out Jennings. It's hard to see him beating out Danny Gray, given the capital that went for Danny Gray. He's just going to be at the end there. So Ray McLeod is obviously there for special teams purposes. It's a crowded wide receiver room, and it might be kind of hard for him to crack the roster.
Mike, anything to add?
Yeah, no, and I don't think he's there to push the Jennings and the McLeods even. It's more for the guys like Tay Martin, who've been hanging around the team, but not getting on the field, right? Like, you got to bring some more out of these guys. And I think that's what he's going to do. I think he's a little more polished than guys like Tay Martin, but still, I don't know how much you're going to actually see of him this season on the field. So we'll have to see. He's going to have to do something that really, really shines. I think this is a good system for wide receivers in general. So we'll have to see what happens.
I mean, Matt touched on it there. Juwan Jennings, it's like 7th rounders usually don't make any sort of an impact, but Juwan Jennings is one that happened with the 49ers and recently. So it could definitely happen. And then, of course, obviously there's Purdy, but wide receiver position, All right, last pick for the 49ers, round 7, 255 overall, Jalen Graham, linebacker of Purdue, from Purdue, I should say. I mean, like Mike said earlier, just filling the roster. I'm not sure what to make of this pick, if anything, other than depth. If you guys have anything else.
He was there. He was there. They'd done maybe a little work on him. At that point, again, you're throwing darts against the dartboard and hoping that you hit a number somewhere.
Yeah.
So, not a particularly fast guy. Seems like he's average speed, average everything. And again, once you get to 255, I mean, this is the end of the draft. You're talking about guys who are borderline undrafted free agents. There's obvious flaws in the game. Otherwise, these guys would have gone higher, right? So there's obvious unknowns with all of these guys. You know, anybody who's saying, "Oh man, I watched all of Jalen Graham's film. I know exactly what he's going to be at the next level." They're fooling you, right? I'd never heard of this guy, and I've looked at some of his stuff, and he looks okay. I don't know if he's going to have the talent to stick around in the NFL, but there was enough there that they drafted him. And again, this is, even after roster cut downs, they got to put people on the practice squad. So if you can hang around NFL practice squads and continue to develop, there's a shot that you can end up on a team and be a contributor. So that's all these guys can really hope for at this point.
Yeah.
I think that this pick is similar to the Brock Purdy pick in the sense of once you get down to the bottom, let's get someone with a lot of experience. Of a potential 36 games that he played in, he started 35 of them. And so I think that's what the Niners were looking at. Like, just give us somebody that we know can go out there and take, can do the assignment. He might not do it well. He might not be the fastest, the strongest, the biggest, but this is a guy with a ton of playing experience at the collegiate level. Let's see how much of it translates to the pro level. I looked at 2 or 3 different draft guides, and his name wasn't even listed in some of them. So, I'm not talking like 7th round to FA or free agents. I mean, like, just not even on them. So I thought that was interesting.
Damn. It's a crapshoot at that point. I just want to throw in here, just Jim Everett, one of our biggest fans, says Rams drafted the best quarterback in the draft. He's the next Montana. Notice you didn't say he's the next Jim Everett.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.
I just found out that he's a Rams fan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea. He's in every show.
Look at his avatar, man. Yeah,
his avatar. See what that is. What is that?
It's Jim Everett.
Jim Everett.
Oh,
Chris Everett.
All right.
Watch yourself, Jim Rome.
I know he's gonna come and tackle me over the table. All right. Overall, what are your guys' takes on this draft? It's obviously impossible to grade a draft a day out, right? But as much as you can, did they address needs that you felt needed addressing? If so, how do you feel they did, Matt?
I hope for their sake that their right tackle is actually in the building, because to not even draft any offensive linemen, and you're telling me, and listen, no disrespect to Cameron Latu, but Nick Saldivari was on the board, Ringo was still on the board, and you're telling me one of those guys wouldn't have been more of a pressing need than Cameron Latu, who really is not in the mold of George Kittle, right? If you're looking for those type of tight ends, there were other tight ends on the board that maybe would have fit the bill a little better, but you go with a guy who's, not super athletic and is going to project down at the goal line at best. Very interesting to me, but again, all I can do is trust that they've done their due diligence and that for whatever reason they think Colt McKivitz or Jalen Moore or Nick Zakelj is going to be the guy that's going to fill that roster spot. I think they signed a free agent, Matt Pryor, who could potentially play there, but it looks like it's going to be Colt McKivitz to start the season. And, Mike, I know that you were a big proponent of them having the right tackle in the building, so let's hope they're right. Beyond that, they're just, again, this is a Super Bowl caliber roster if they can get the quarterback right. So you're really just filling for depth at this point. So I don't have too much of a problem outside of the right tackle of the future not being addressed, but we'll see.
Mike?
When you return 21 of 22 starters on a team that was in the NFC Championship the previous season, you're not going in here trying to fill holes. Those holes don't exist. It's like Matt just said, it's all about depth at this point. And I wouldn't be mad. You know, I know a lot of people are going to ask us for letter grades and things like that. I wouldn't be mad if someone said this was an F. Outside of the first 2 picks, those were the only needs. And then the positions that you took, there were a lot of players that people liked more than the ones that they took. And Matt went through that with the tight ends, right? There's wide receivers that I liked a lot more than Bell, but the team went where they decided to go. And I think that speaks to the confidence of what they have in the building. You know, Matt talked about also with the right tackle and how I've been saying that those guys that they believe that the answer is there. And John Lynch and Kyle kind of alluded to that as well when they went to the podium. We didn't waste time drafting those offensive linemen because we don't think any of them are even going to come in here and push, not so much beat, but even push the guys that are already here. So that if you do anything, if you gain anything from this draft class, if you have questions, that tells you that this team has a ton of confidence. This coaching staff, this front office has a ton of confidence in the players already in the building. And that's all you could hope for. That's all, you know, people are getting really excited about, oh, look at what the Seahawks did. Look at what this team, those are the teams with more holes. Those are the teams that need these guys to come in here and really work out. We're not in that position.
I was actually just going to touch on that. You know, people want to compare it to the Seahawks draft. You know, people are like, oh, man, look at what the Seahawks did. That talent gap is closed. Okay, well, I mean, the 49ers beat them all 3 times they played. So, I mean, they could have, but again, when you're at the top, like you're just filling for depth. People talk about the Eagles draft class. You know, they got Jalen Carter, they got Nolan Smith, they traded for DeAndre Swift. It's like because they lost guys at those positions. At every single one of those positions, free agency created a hole for them. They're trying to fill that hole that the 49ers didn't have. Yep. So you can look at it that way and kind of, you know, judge them based off of that. But that's not necessarily an indication that, you know, the 49ers somehow messed up the draft or they automatically get an F or whatever else. You know, there's still people out there in terms of free agents that they can sign. I know that they restructured Christian McCaffrey's contract. They're at about $10 million of cap space. I mean, that's enough to sign another edge rusher, maybe sign one of the, you know, a tackle out on the free agent market. And, you know, I don't know exactly who's out there, but it's one of those, you know, I'm looking at it right now. You know, I don't know if Donovan Smith, is he still available? I don't know. Like, it's just one of those things. Donovan Smith, Isaiah Wynn is out there. There's guys that have starting experience. Cam Fleming, they might not be the best guy, but is it somebody that you can bring in and take a look at? So it's still early in the free agent process. I mean, you got OTAs, training camp is still, you know, 2.5 months away or whatever. So there's time. I think that the 49ers and you know, Joey brings up a good point. Undrafted free agents come in and, you know, they could make an impact. I know Mr. Sweegen said 15 Hall of Famers were undrafted free agents. You don't want to hang your hat on that because how many first rounders have been Hall of Famers, right? I'm sure it's a lot more than 15. So there are impact players to be had, but the 49ers have options. And I think that we're jumping the gun. It's easy to compare draft classes. Oh, right off the bat, you know, these day one grades. Hindsight's always 20/20. And a lot of these players that everybody said, hey, this guy's a stud. This guy, they won the draft. Absolutely. Right. People are saying Houston won the draft. Well, what if CJ Stroud isn't good? And what if Will Anderson turns out to be injury prone or something like that? You know, just like that, the whole thing can change. So
I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and even if those guys are good, is that team now at the level that the 49ers are on? Right? The 49ers have the second, well, I don't know if it changed since the draft. Prior to the draft, the second best odds on Super Bowl betting are all those additions to Seattle, all those additions to Houston, right? All those additions to the Eagles. The Niners were the team with the second best odds behind the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that says something.
So according to Vegas Insider, Philadelphia is now the second highest odds. 49ers are third. And really, to me, that's just because of the uncertainty at quarterback.
Yeah,
for the 49ers,
yeah. Right. And more to the point, when you assessing the draft and things like that. I know we talked about, you know, the holes and all, but Matt, you made a good point when you were talking about. Oh damn! It left me. I'm sorry. I had it.
Let me know if it comes back. I'll share something. You guys touched on this earlier. A lot of fans on Twitter comparing the 49ers draft to other teams' draft. And I'm going to call someone out by name who I have a lot of respect for, John Chapman, my guy John. I saw him tweet out immediately comparing the Seahawks and the Eagles to the 49ers draft. And it's almost like those teams had multiple first-round picks and the 49ers didn't pick until the end of the third round. There's going to be a massive talent discrepancy when you cannot pick until then. So I get what he's trying to say, but at the same time, it's like take everything into account, and it makes a ton of sense as to why. And, those picks are Trey Lance and Christian McCaffrey. So it's a little disingenuous, in my opinion, to compare them flat out and say, well, the Eagles and the Seahawks got, worlds better, but the 49ers, they got a kicker. It's like, all right, come on.
Right. And more than that, the Niners didn't have a first. I'm talking about original picks, by the way. I'm not talking about comp picks. We didn't have a first, a second, a third, fourth. We might have not even had our original fifth round pick. 90% of this draft, it was comp picks. Everything we had was something that we earned through either free agency or coaches being signed. So even though we had those 11 picks, how many of them were at the very bottom of each of those respective rounds? So you can't, that's what I was going to say when Matt was talking about the picks and things like that. That's what it was. You can't compare it. We didn't have any original picks. We had no original pick. I think we maybe had two this entire draft. That's it. And they were in the 6th and 7th.
And again, outside of the uncertainty around quarterbacks, I mean, really, what are we talking about? This roster was a Brock Purdy injury away from going to the Super Bowl. If Brock Purdy doesn't get injured, who knows how that game turns out? The 49ers would have at least made it more competitive than it was. And to Zach's point, we turned one of those picks into Christian McCaffrey. The 49ers return all these players. I mean, we talk about, what are their real needs? And, right tackle definitely looks like a position of need. They feel comfortable with it. But, I mean, they're still out here drafting cornerbacks, despite the fact that they have Charvarius Ward, despite the fact that Deommodore Lenoir has come up. Despite the fact that they signed Isaiah Oliver from the Atlanta Falcons, that you have year 3 of Ambry Thomas, year 2 of Samuel Womack, and they're still going out here signing these guys. Deshaun Gibson is here. Talanoa Hufanga is here. The Odom is still here at safety. They go out and they still get another safety. So this is a team that's just trying to get better by identifying certain traits or players or picks that they feel like has a potential to work out. They're drafting out of a need for depth and not a need for a superstar at any given point. Whereas the Seahawks, man, they needed some of these guys. And yes, they did get the top wide receiver in the draft. But I mean, they still have Tyler Lockett. They still have DK Metcalf. And I'm sorry, nobody's going to convince me that Geno Smith is actually the answer there. And if you're expecting him to perform up to what he performed to last year, I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed. Yeah. So
go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, they say that a star burns brightest right before it duds out, right? So, I mean, who knows? I'm not wishing anything ill on Geno Smith, but that was easily his best season in the NFL. And I think, like Matt said, it would be foolish to anticipate that. I don't know if the details of Christian McCaffrey's deal are released yet or not, but I do know that it created a lot of cap space, and this 49ers draft class cost them less than $400,000 to sign all 9 of those guys, right? So now the Niners are sitting somewhere upper 10s, lower $11 million, and you know what happens tomorrow? Anybody that you sign as a free agent does not count against compensatory picks. We can go out there and get Yannick Ngakoue and give him a really nice 3-year deal, and it won't count against the comp pick formula, and we know, evidenced by this draft in particular, that the Niners care about that comp pick formula. So don't be surprised if the Niners go crazy in the next 2 days. The next 48 hours, the Niners could get really busy. We are not at 99 yet. I forget the exact count. I believe they still have like 6 spots available on the roster, somewhere close to that, getting plus or minus 2, right? But the Niners, they're a very calculated team. They have not yet extended Bosa, which will create more cap space as well. You got the Christian McCaffrey detail that I think that I can't see that, but you got the Christian McCaffrey details, and there are guys out there. As soon as the Christian McCaffrey details came out, people pulled up Yannick Ngakwe's tweet. One word, coming. Was that a sign? I don't know. We'll see.
The restructure freed up $8.576 million in salary cap space per Field Yates. And this is over the cap. Jason Hurley, great cap guy. We got to get him on the podcast. I told him previously we'll get him on. And Jason, if you're watching, I apologize. I never reached back out to you, but we'll get you on. You break down the numbers fantastically. There's a couple of comments I want to get to. Let me get the screen back to normal here. Okay.
And real quick, let me just touch on the Geno Smith thing. 8 out of his 11 interceptions were week 9 or later. So in the second half of the season.
I was shocked they did not take a quarterback. I don't see them picking that early for a bit. Maybe they'll be mid-range, but I was shocked. I thought 100% they were going to take a quarterback, let him develop under Geno Smith. Maybe it was one of the two taken, 1 and 2, but I thought they definitely should have taken one there. But hey, they got the top receiver in this year's draft. I want to get to this comment because you commented it twice, so I think you really want us to address it. The draft is EMA beats the draft mirrored Kyle's arrogance. We are not complete without player depth / needs of getting better. It's underwhelming. IDGAF. Do you guys think this was anything about Kyle's arrogance and his roster?
But what arrogance? Like at that point, I think we're all in pretty much agreement that the pick of Brown at 87 was a good pick. To me, this just seems like, oh, the kicker at 99 is what's really setting him off. Because beyond that, I mean, nobody really knows who the other players are. This is what I said. If some guy's saying, oh, I watched all this tape, this guy was definitely it. Okay, fine. But guess what? Safety and kicker were both needs. And as Mike pointed out earlier, the Patriots were going to go up and get Jake Moody. They were going to go get him. So if the 49ers thought that teams score these differently, right? Like everybody lists in the draft guide. Oh, but let's just say whatever, PFF's draft guide that these 12 guys are like the top 12 prospects for kickers. Okay, well, the 49ers might have been like, nah, it's Jake Moody or none of these other guys because they're not good, right? We're not going to waste a pick on somebody because they're not good enough. We'll just bring somebody in as a free agent if we think or whatever. So if that's your only guy, and like Mike said, they must have somebody in the Patriots organization that they're very friendly with or is willing to kind of give them some sort of insight, that the Patriots are going to go up and get that guy, then you go get that guy. So, I mean, again, you're talking about a team that's a quarterback injury away from potentially going to the Super Bowl and a team that has a Super Bowl roster still, a team that went out and got the number 1 free agent on the market, Javon Hargrave, to shore up a defensive line, right? A team that brings back Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and all these guys. Trent Williams, right? Again, show me the obvious glaring hole. And I point out right tackle, but that's just me not knowing what else is in the building. But they've seen Colt McKivitz practice. They've seen Jalen Moore practice. They've seen Nick Sakel's practice. They know what they have in these guys. So I don't know that it's necessary. I don't know how not having a first or a second round pick and really having to trade to go up to 87. I don't know how that's about ego. I don't understand that perspective.
I don't know if I fully understand the difference between arrogance and confidence. I don't know if I like what's the big difference between those two?
Results.
Right? So, I mean, first, if you have a head coach that's not arrogant or confident, shouldn't be a head coach, first of all. But I don't think this draft was reflective of that. I think it's more reflective of what Matt was saying. Who are these guys coming in here to replace? Even if we got the best linebacker out here, is he replacing the absence of Aziz, the guy who was the rotational guy? Because he's not coming in here beating out Fred Warner or Dre Greenlaw. That's not going to happen. All right. You look at the safeties. You got Huff, 3rd year. He should take some more steps forward. By the way, Pro Bowler, right? Is he going to replace Gibson? Gibson played well enough to be a Pro Bowler. I don't think he got the nod, but he played really well. Maybe you could replace him. He's coming up in age, like you guys said. He'll be 33 by the time the season starts, but he still played at a high level.
They did that with Brown.
Right, exactly. So much so that he replaced Jimmy Ward, and they said, hey, if you want to play, this is where you're going to have to play. Like these are things that, you know what I'm saying, that the team told him he was going to have to do, and they still addressed it. Even if that was your biggest concern, they addressed it right away. So who were you looking for them to get? If you thought that the Niners were going to get a starting right tackle with a compensatory pick, I'm sorry, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Let me add in real quick.
Exactly. And that's where I was going to, was that they would have had to trade into the first round, which they did not have the capital to do to get one of these guys, or second round. Go ahead, Zach.
I think that when we're talking arrogance, when we're talking confidence, if you just were minutes away, matter of minutes, maybe more so this year than last year, from 2 back-to-back Super Bowl appearances, and most of those players are returning, you should have some level of confidence and maybe a little bit of arrogance. And we are a couple of pieces away, guys. A kicker, since we lost our kicker, some depth in the secondary, maybe some depth in the linebacking core. So I think they are completely right to address their roster in the way that they did in the draft. And like Matt and Mike both just said before me, we don't know a lot of these later round guys. Nobody knew who Brock Purdy was when they drafted Brock Purdy last year. Nobody knew who Juwan Jennings was when they drafted Juwan Jennings a couple years ago. These guys, George Kittle, they develop into either stars, role players, starting position players, and we have no idea which of these will be that.
Yeah, and to your point, Zach, did you guys not see the run on quarterbacks this draft? Like all these guys, Stetson Bennett, Max Duggan, all these guys went like within 20 or 30 picks of each other. And
on quarterback specifically, can we put to bed that we're trading away one of these guys? Can we lay it? They didn't even sign an undrafted free agent quarterback.
Yeah.
Can we put it to bed? Can we say that Trey Lance
for now?
For now. That's topic.
For now, just because we need to see.
I'm sorry.
Hey, you're good.
Oh no. Okay, we'll save that. We'll save that.
Let me just
last thing I want to say about this draft, and you know, the arrogance or whatever, you know, not being happy. First of all, I think there was a comment in there about like we got to do better than just like special teams contributors. Dude, don't overlook special teams because it makes a huge difference. That field position battle becomes very important. But to answer Mike's question, I think I have a good analogy for this: is the confidence versus the arrogance thing, right? I'd love to sit here and call Steph Curry arrogant, right? But the dude, everything that he does, and it pisses me off. He jacks up these threes, he jacks up all this stuff, and he hits those threes. And we all played basketball when we were younger, and we all knew the dude that would gesticulate like that, give me the ball, would jack up these threes, brick. That's the difference, right? Confidence is arrogance with talent and results, right? Without the results, you're just an arrogant piece of shit, right? With the talent, you have confidence in your ability, and you're going to let everybody know.
That was me last night. I went bowling with a couple of coworkers. I took my wife to meet him. One of my drivers brought his wife out, right? And we're bowling, and I'm talking a lot of stuff. And my stroke felt so good when I released the ball. It landed where I wanted. I saw the curve coming back. I turned around, and you remember when Steph Curry went to the sideline, like, did it go in? Did it go in? I was doing that. I turned my back to the to the pins, and I was like, huh? You like that? Was that it? They were like, Mike, look. And the fucking 7-pin was standing there. So I guess that was the arrogance versus confidence.
That's like who was that player that shot the three? And was it D'Angelo Russell or somebody like that?
Yeah, the Lakers guy.
You know he turned around like this, went like this.
Nick Young. I think it was Nick Young.
You're right. It was Nick Young. Yeah. Swaggy P or whatever. That Swaggy P versus Steph Curry. That's the difference between arrogance and confidence.
Yeah.
Put that last comment back up. Arrogance is in we got it all and don't need to get better, so we underwhelming and underachieve pick-wise. That's what I mean. But how do you know? You don't know these players. I guarantee you don't know them better than the team does.
EMA, can you tell us who you wanted the Niners to draft to replace? Like, tell me, like, give me just 3 players you say, hey, we could have drafted their replacement. Just give me 3 players. And this is not like a me banging my chest calling somebody out. I sincerely want to know who you think we should have drafted to replace somebody starting at 99. We moved up to 87. And we got a guy that we hope is a replacement level player at 87. Most teams aren't doing that, by the way. Right? So tell me, like, give me 2 or 3 names, if you can, of who you thought we should be drafting that's going to come in here and start. Like the players that are being replaced. Not a don't tell me about a draft a pick. Don't tell me about a prospect. I want to know the name of someone on the current roster that's a starter that you say we could have got their replacement.
And by the way, one of those first 3 picks, Jake Moody, is definitely going to be a starter on the team.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the undrafted free agents. I'll just list them out, and then we'll get into the last topic of the night. So the 49ers so far have signed Avery Young, DB out of Rutgers, Il Manning, OL out of Hawaii, Jack Coletto, linebacker, fullback out of Oregon State, Joey Fisher, which I've seen a lot of people excited about, offensive lineman out of Shepherd, Ronald Awatt, running back out of UTEP, and Shea Wyatt, wide receiver out of Tulane. I know absolutely nothing about these gentlemen so far. I don't know if you guys have anything to add. If not, we'll move on to the next topic.
I will say that the running back, there's a running back that they got from, I thought it was Marshall. Where was the running back from?
UTEP.
Is that where he's from? I know. I saw.
No, you're thinking of Kalen LeBourne.
Yes. Where
from
where
Marshall?
Marshall. Oh, he was from Marshall. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw some plays of his, and this guy looks like he could be something. But you can do that with running backs because the value of a running back is so freaking low. You can do that. He might
apparently not this year. Like 3 went in the first round.
Well, yeah, I mean, but those
this year was wild.
Guys, yeah, like so I'm looking at it, and he might be somebody who can come in here and push a Jordan Mason, either step up or step off. Maybe, but that's about all I got.
I apologize, guys. The list I had was not up to date. So Mike is correct. There was also Washington center Corey Luciano, North Dakota State defensive lineman Special Waggy.
Wagner, something like that.
Yeah, Waggy. Marshall running back Kalen LeBourne, and that is it up to date so far. Oh, yeah, no, I said Joey Fisher.
The guy from North Dakota State. I did watch some of him after we got him, and I've been enamored with all these North Dakota State players since we got Trey Lance. I was banging the pedestal for Christian Watson during that draft, right? I really wanted the Niners to try to get him. I did go back and look at this guy once we got him. I will say that this guy has one of those. Please don't take this the wrong way. He's got one of those Justin Smith motors. One of those. I'm not talking about effectiveness down and down. Now on the field, he was the man, but we have to remember the level of competition. I'm not saying he is going to be Justin Smith, but he has a motor, and if they can get something out of him, it's going to be good. I saw great one's comment here, Jada Kiss. We did not get Jada. He tweeted out himself, don't pay attention. If I don't confirm it, it didn't happen. And the people that reported it since retracted and deleted those tweets. So we did not get him.
This is the athletic score, relative athletic score on Spencer Waggy, 9.57, which is crazy high, higher than any of the draft picks.
And listen, what's the thing that okay, so this actually makes sense to me. Now I can see why some of the other guys scored lower. If you look at the height and the weight, they actually score those.
Yeah, it factors in, right? But you could be a 5'5" running back, but you could be fast as shit, and they'll be like, yeah, that's a red mark. Like, what does that have to do with it? Yeah. Exactly.
The bench press a little concerning, but then again, like who gives a shit really? Like bench press. And by the way, he's 6'4.5", so some of those guys, especially if he has long arms, arm length 32 point, so like his arms are going to be a little longer, which means that he's got to push that bar farther than some other stout individuals. So that plays a factor too. But yeah, anything they can get out of these undrafted free agents. Again, this is all depth, and we're talking about a team that was right there competing for a Super Bowl. How many and they're returning most of their starters.
The Niners
got like what else? What else do we need?
They picked up a guy, and I don't remember who it was. I remember discussing it during the draft show, and his hands are like 8.2 or something like. And I'm like, my 13-year-old son has bigger hands than this guy. Is it a linebacker? I forget which guy it was, and I'm not going to look it up because I'm not going to go through all these prospects. But it was someone we drafted with like 8. Like, what is that? What is that? I don't know. I thought that was weird. And I'm not one of those guys that I don't even know what the hand measurement is supposed to be. But that was rough. I saw that and was like, nah, no way. So I thought that was interesting.
That was the one thing that made me question the pick of Solomon Thomas. Was I watched a lot of him at Stanford, and he had those smaller hands, and it made it so that it was harder for him to wrap up and tackle. People were getting away because he didn't have those big hands to just grab onto somebody. And when you get into, people like Quadzilla, that running back for the Packers, and you got these little babies, you're trying to grasp that. Yeah, and you're trying to grasp that ham hock, dude, and pull that guy down. Like, that's not going to be enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, you better have bigger hands than that. So...
Great one's right. I knew it was someone, and I was like, that's why he's on that side of the ball. He's absolutely right. You don't expect the guy with 8-inch hands to catch anything. I'm sorry.
Joey says D. Winters, 8 and 5-inch hands, 2 percentile among linebackers.
Damn, dude.
So both.
Have y'all ever done your hand measurement before?
I actually haven't, but I got pretty big hands.
I'm a 9 3/4, so those guys have baby hands, man.
Zach did exactly what I did. We were discussing. I opened my hand and put it to my face. Let people know how big my face is. That's the funny part. So I did the same exact.
Ace Presses can't even hold a Whopper. All right. Last topic of the night. I'm going to play this clip. Hopefully we don't get copyright, but if so, oh well. It is what it is. This is from draft day, Saturday morning. Very interesting report comes out. I mean, I guess you can call it a report. I don't know. This is from Rap Sheet. I'm just going to play it.
Rich, to your end of making sure you don't run out of quarterbacks, I would actually not be surprised if the 49ers took another late quarterback here. They've done all the homework on kind of the back end guys. But just to get to your point about why would you trade Trey Lance? First of all, this kind of goes without saying, but to have the number 3 overall pick end up being the potential third string quarterback on your roster is awkward. And at some point, there is more value out there trading him than there is in keeping him on the roster. There's going to be some team, and maybe this is in August when we know for sure that Brock Purdy is healthy. At some point, if someone loses a quarterback, maybe Trey Lance is better on another roster, and the 49ers are better off with the draft pick compensation or a player they would get. I'm not saying they're definitely trading him, but I'm saying there is a reason to do so at some point.
I implore one of you guys to speak before me so I don't get us
I'll go. I'll go.
Please, thank you.
Okay, so I tweeted this out right after I saw this clip, right? And my initial take was last year, unquestioned starter going into the year, full support of the team, full support of the teammates from as far as we know, wasn't even an issue. And then he gets hurt. Obviously, he gets hurt. He's, going through rehab. Now he's healthy again. Obviously, Brock Purdy emerged, but I don't understand how the logic goes to unquestioned starter last year to possibly third string quarterback this year. When did Sam Darnold leapfrog Trey Lance, and how they haven't even done any OTA, or they did do OTA? They haven't done OTAs. They haven't done anything. So why does Sam Darnold automatically leapfrog him? Is it experience? Because the experience isn't good. We've seen dog shit performance from Sam Darnold. So that was my initial take. Where is he getting this info from? Is it pure speculation? Matt, please take over because I'm going to rant.
I think Sam Darnold overtook Trey Lance when the 49ers leaked out that Sam Darnold had overtaken Trey Lance in the hopes that somebody will solve the problem for them and give them a blowaway offer. If not, they'll go into the season with Trey Lance there, and Trey Lance will be ahead of Sam Darnold because Sam Darnold can't play. Plain and simple, Sam Darnold can't play. Go ahead, Mike.
When did the Niners leak that?
I'm saying that my theory is that the team is putting out there that they want somebody to come take Trey Lance off of their hands so they don't have to make that difficult decision. oh, well, we got an offer that was just so good that, and we want to do right by Trey. And we feel that the best thing for Trey would be to get him out there and he needs to play, but Brock Purdy also had such a special year for us last year. And, he'd be the leader in the clubhouse today and blah, 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 yada, 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 whatever they're going to say. Right. It's the same thing. They did the same song and dance with Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah. We don't see a situation where Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be here next year. Jimmy Garoppolo, hey, we thank him for what he did, blah, 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 blah. I don't know, man. It's one of those situations where I feel like the team is trying to drum up interest in Trey Lance, but if they don't get exactly what they want, they also aren't under any obligation to trade him either. They don't know if Brock Purdy's going to be healthy yet. Like I said, that June 2nd deadline is really important. It's the first 3 months after the surgery. They're going to know a lot more then as he's cleared to throw and has to start building up. For me, there's too much invested in Trey Lance for them to kind of cut bait already. But if it gets out there that they are, then, it is what it is.
Mike?
This has been the dumbest report of the entire offseason that Trey Lance won't be with the 49ers. It has been there's been zero validity to any of it. If less than zero was a possibility, that would be it, because less than zero would be the team pumping him up, right? However, the team has said we are just as confident in Trey this coming season as we were last season. Zach, you just said 6 minutes ago they had all the confidence in the world, so much so that they actively shopped Jimmy Garoppolo and named Trey the starter without competing in camp. And then for them to come out this season and say we are just as confident in him now as we were then, tells me everything I need to know. Everything I need to know. I said it last time I was on with you guys. I'm going to say it again. This team would be so irresponsible to trade anybody. Sam Darnold, Brock Purdy, Trey. They would be so irresponsible to trade a single quarterback away right now that I would sincerely judge the fuck out of this team. I would have a hard time doing shows if they were to be that irresponsible. You needed 5. You're not trading away the only healthy one with knowledge of the system. It's not going to happen. And Rap has been on this tear of Trey Lance not being here. Now, I don't know if someone, like Matt said, is feeding him this information behind the scenes for him to just he's constantly saying this. Not one time. The moment they got Sam Darnold, it was, okay, well, you got Brock Purdy and his backup now. And I'm like, did we just cut? I'm scrolling through Twitter to find out where we cut Trey, where we released him. Did we trade him? Did I miss something? That has been happening from the day we signed Sam Darnold. And it has come from absolutely nowhere. This is people wanting to be the, hey, you heard it here first, guys. And it's a nasty, nasty look with people with real sources like Rap say things like this. It just makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't understand it. Mike Florio, hey, I get it. You got to stir the pot because that's how you stay relevant, right? Mike Silver, I get it. And now I'm starting to understand why people don't like when I speak, because my name is Mike also. I'm starting to get it now, right? Those guys, I get it. You have to try to do something to stay relevant, to drive clicks, to promote your pages and all that stuff. Rap doesn't have to do that. He's one of the most well-respected people in the business. He is the guy that is tapped in more than probably anybody else in the business. Yet he, for whatever reason, this train, he just won't get off of. The Niners are probably going to draft somebody else, and they're going to trade Trey Lance. And I would not be surprised if Trey Lance is traded day 1. Well, it's still a possibility he could be traded day 2. You said that was a Saturday report, right? That's a day 3 report. What the fuck are they trading him for on day 3? Tell me. Make it make sense. What were they going to trade him for on day 3? That's a really good 6th-round pick we got. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? It was never going to happen. And to stay and die on that, that's the hill you want to go out on? That the Trey Lance is going to be traded on day 3 of the draft? And why? Because it doesn't make sense for the number 3 pick of the draft to be your 3rd-string quarterback. Well, I got news for you, buddy. Sam Darnold is going to be the third string quarterback on this team. And guess where he was picked? It's going to happen anyway. Shut up. Get off of his nuts and let the guy play. Just stop. They got to stop. It's absolutely absurd. I'm sorry. I'm going to shut up because I really don't want to curse a lot. So I'm going to stop.
No, hey, I'm feeling what you're saying. Listen, and by the way, Big Papa, golly, man, I feel like you're coming after me. Why do I sound like Eeyore? I'm on record as saying this team is talented. We were a Super Bowl team, whatever. I'm still on record as saying that I think Trey Lance is going to be the week 1 starter because Brock Purdy probably won't be ready. Like, what are you talking about, man?
I didn't even see this comment.
God damn. I'm one of the more positive people about this team. Everybody out here saying our draft fucking sucked and all this shit. Hey, you coming after me?
He had to come after your delivery, not your takes. It was the delivery.
I guess. Well, now you're just making fun of my voice, man. Every time I turn you on, you're a Debbie Downer.
Oh, my bad.
When? I think Trey's going to be the week 1 starter because Brock Purdy probably won't be ready. I think that.
All right, let me hold your feet to the fire here, Matt.
Holy shit!
If June comes, Brock is cleared to throw. He's good to go. Then who do you think will be the starter?
Whoever plays better in camp.
Oh man, great answer. You can't call him a Debbie Downer for being real. You can't call him a Debbie Downer not for that take. You can't.
Yeah, whoever's going to be. I'm just saying, I think that the 49ers were trying to have somebody take the problem off their hands because that's how they seem to want to do things. They don't want to be the bad guys. They want somebody to help them out. Like, hey.
Yeah.
You know?
Tad on to what Mike said, though. Tad on to what Mike said. The biggest just conundrum in all of this that I can't even get past is 3 months ago, the season ended because you needed 5 quarterbacks. You needed your 5th quarterback. And now you have 2 quarterbacks that you're positive on. One that's a little more proven than the other, but the other one's got the world of talent. And another quarterback that you just signed in Sam Darnold, who also has talent, but hasn't really had success. And you're thinking, well, clearly we don't need one of these guys. Like, it would be after you just petitioned the league to allow an emergency quarterback in playoff games to come in, it would be the most boneheaded move in the NFL. You want to talk about arrogance? That would be arrogant. That would be 100% arrogant for Kyle Shanahan to come out here and trade Trey Lance saying, it's cool. We got Brock and we got Sam Darnold. We don't even know if Brock's elbow is connected to his upper arm anymore, but it's fine. We'll roll with him and we'll roll with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, who said it? Oh, I'm going to put this one up. Trey's cleared now, not named QB1. He lost his job. Why the fuck would you name a starter in April? Who cares about April?
There's no depth chart.
You don't
right
even
now.
know if Brock Purdy's going to be healthy. You got 2 quarterbacks that are going to compete with each other in camp. And then you got IC ghosts there in emergency situations. Tell me the quarterback number 3.
Naming a starter would be the most detrimental thing they can do to the quarterback room.
Exactly.
I did this whole rant on my Patreon, and I talked about why the team coming out saying that they have listened to offers for Trey was the best thing that they could do, and how it benefits all 3 quarterbacks. All 3 of them benefited from the team coming out publicly acknowledging that they were listening to offers for Trey Lance, that they received calls. One, for Trey Lance, hey, listen, we never put you on the trade block. When our phone rings, hey, buddy, we got to answer. All right? It's been ringing all offseason about you. You're still here. We got you. Don't worry. We like you. We're just as confident in you as we were last year when we named you the starter. We're getting offers for you. People are calling about you. You're still here for a reason. Boom. Confidence booster for Trey Lance. Okay? You go into the room and you talk to Brock Purdy. Listen, you played phenomenal. We think that if you had stayed healthy, we had a really good shot at beating the Eagles. We had a phenomenal game plan. We know that you were capable of executing. We probably would have had a Lombardi trophy here. All right? You go out there. You do rehab. Listen, man, there's a reason why we're listening to offers for Trey. We didn't just completely dead it. We're listening to it because we have that much confidence in you if and when your number is called. Like, we got you. Boom. Confidence booster for Purdy. How does that help Sam Darnold?
Sam Darnold, you're better than Josh Johnson. Welcome to the team. Boom.
Well, no. Booster. but specifically with the trades about Trey, right? Specifically with the trades about Trey. Hey, listen, Sam,
We feel good about you, good enough for you to be the backup quarterback here.
we just signed you, and the other guy doesn't have an arm, and we're still listening to offers for the one guy that's healthy with experience in the system. That tells you what we think you could be here. Keep working hard. You're going to get those reps in practice. We'll see what happens. It's a win-win-win all the way across the board to publicly admit we are listening to calls. Trey, you're not on the trade block, but when the phone rings, we will listen. Everybody has a price, including myself. How many times have you heard John Lynch and Kyle say that same thing? Everybody has a price, including myself. The only person this regime has ever shut down phone calls for is Nick Bosa, because star-studded pass rushers like that are harder to come by than competent quarterbacks. That's why. That's why. It's a
by the way,
all the way across the board. And naming a starter now would just shoot down all the confidence you built up and all that behind the scenes talking to all three of these quarterbacks that you went through the last 2 months. That's all it is.
And I'm gonna put this up too. Last year, Trey was QB1 over Jimmy G. Jimmy G was not supposed to be here. Jimmy G was a late signing because of the injuries that Jimmy G went through and the fact that the quarterback market was slow and the fact that he took a huge pay cut to come back after the 49ers had already named or said that they were going with Trey Lance. And to me, I said at the time, and I will say it again, I did not want Jimmy Garoppolo to come back to this team because it put more pressure on Trey Lance after being named the starter and then bringing the dude that you replaced to sit behind you. That was more pressure for him. This year, like to Mike's credit, that he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that. So, I mean, I'm sure you could say, oh, yeah, he's not the guy because they didn't name him the starter. It's April. They have Trey Lance coming back from a major injury. They have Sam Darnold they brought in for insurance. Brock Purdy's coming off a major injury. They're going to settle it in camp when those guys are healthy. And if Brock has to start the season on the pup, then Trey Lance is in the building, and Trey Lance is going to be the starter, and Darnold will be the backup. And then when Purdy comes back, he's going to have to sit behind Trey until there's a reason for them to pull Trey. So it's whoever is going to be the guy standing in camp and is playing the best is going to be the guy that starts.
And when we get to that point in particular, I am documented. I want to see Trey Lance play. When we get to that point where all of them go through camp, all of them go through practice, and they name a starter, all that does is boost my confidence in the guy that's running out there. If it's not Trey, damn, this guy went out there and earned it. Whoever it is, Brock, Sam, they really went out there and earned it. And now I'm excited to see what it is. If you went out there and beat what I think we have in Trey, or what I think we have in Sam Darnold, or what I think we have in Purdy, if you go out there and beat that, that means that you're that much better than what I even thought the other guy was. Because let me tell you guys one thing about Kyle. He wants to win more than anything. You guys wanted to talk about confidence and arrogance earlier. Kyle wants to freaking win it. I can't imagine how frustrating it is to lose a Super Bowl multiple years or not get to the Super Bowl because of the play of the quarterback or lack thereof. He wants a quarterback to come out there and take the job more than anybody. And he's not going to sit there and just name somebody when he's got confidence in two out of the three guys for sure. He's not just going to say, okay, you're the guy.
Right.
No, now Kyle actually has a position where it should be a quarterback competition, and may the best man win.
Let me add something and then we'll start to wrap it up. He also said, I don't think the Bengals were listening to offers about Joe Burrow. If people were calling after the season after Joe Burrow tore his ACL and offering 2 first-round picks, they probably were taking those offers because there's largely unproven asset in Joe Burrow after tearing his ACL after most of a season, if I remember correctly. Now they know for sure what they have in Joe Burrow. They're shutting those calls down, and rightfully so. If anybody were to call, there's not that sort of proven track record with Trey Lance. So it makes sense to at least listen. If somebody's calling and say, we'll give you 3 first-round picks, they should take that trade right now. Like it would hurt the team not to do that. So I just don't think that's a fair comparison.
You are 1,000% right. If Trey Lance had any kind of track record, the Niners would either shut down the trade talks or encourage the trade talks. He doesn't have that track record that Joe Burrow has. So, Zach, home run comment right there. Like that.
Thank you.
What a great response, man. Like that's exactly what it is. There is no established track record at the pro level for Trey Lance. So to shut down those calls would be silly. We don't know who he is. And because there's no proven track record, the interest is still there. Trey Lance was a first-round prospect. Where on the first-round chart? None of us really know where he would have went if the Niners weren't there at 3, right? But there are a ton of GMs out there that say, you know what, man, I'm looking at these prospects, and Trey Lance is probably the second best guy if he were to be in this draft class. He's healthy now. He's ready to go.
that shit.
Yeah. He's learned a very complicated Kyle Shanahan system, so much so that they were ready to name him the starter last year. I'm sure we can get something else out of him that they didn't get out of him. And now he's ready to go. Let's see if we can get something for him. You're not going to do that with a guy who just took your team a game away from the Super Bowl. Trey Lance hasn't done that yet. Burrows has.
Right. And I think, and I'll say that I think both sides of the coin are getting a little overzealous, right? Because it's always that constant fight with the quarterback, and they just, name a starter, or do this, or do that. Oh, Brock Purdy, he's the best, or I'm Trey Lance all the way. Listen, man, whoever's the best player, because to me, both of these guys, and I know that Brock Purdy had a hell of a season, when he came in, but both of these guys have started less than a season's worth of NFL games.
Yep.
Like, we've seen guys come in and play really well in a spot. I mean, hell, Nick Foles had a playoff run for the ages and was able to piggyback that into a contract. And Nick Foles is trash, right? You can't say one way or another that Brock Purdy is the guy. You can't say one way or another that Trey Lance is the guy. You can't say that either one isn't the guy. Too many unknowns. I would say that the most known quantity in that quarterback room is Sam Darnold, because he's had seasons worth of starting, and you know what you're getting out of him. And I guarantee you that they feel more comfortable with Sam Darnold as a QB3 option than they did with Josh Johnson last year. He just got more cachet. So if anything, it's going to be Trey Lance is clear. Let's see what he's done in the offseason. He's the leader in the clubhouse while Purdy is hurt. If Purdy can come back in camp and meaningfully play in camp, then it's a true competition. And then you can go into the season with whoever wins that battle. If Brock Purdy's not ready to play, then Trey Lance is going to start the season for the 49ers. And Brock Purdy will have to back him up.
187, you were incorrect. The team never said that. Just so we're clear.
They never. Yeah, right. They said if you what was the quote? You'd have to think that he would be the leader in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Which means that he might be starting out a little ahead in their mind, but guess what? He can't throw right now.
But the leader in the clubhouse was the perfect statement.
Moral support.
Well, no, it's not just moral support. It's literally a golf term, right? So if you're in a golf tournament with 30 players, right? They don't all play the same 18 at the same exact time. So what happens is you'll have the first group of 6 be finished their full 18, and someone has the lowest score. That's the leader in the clubhouse. Now you still have to wait for the other 28 players to finish to see who's going to win that tournament or win that day. Leader in the clubhouse means, based off of what we've seen so far and the people that are done, this guy is the best. That's literally what leader of the clubhouse means. I thought that was the perfect statement by John Lynch. It was phenomenal because he's the one that finished, and based off of what we saw of the finished products, he would be ahead right now, but that does not mean that he's QB1. They never said that.
He's describing it as a fluid situation, which is exactly what it is right now.
I say trade a 2024 conditional 5th round. Get Zach Wilson in here, and let's just have fun with this now. Let's go all out, right? Let's get all these former first rounders, and just why the hell not? Also, I thought this was a pretty funny comment. I can't find it, but here we go. Here I was thinking we were done with the quarterback drama once Jimmy left.
Oh, never. Not
with the 49ers. It never ends.
Since Steve Young has been gone, there's been constant quarterback controversy.
Hell,
I remember when people were screaming for Troy Smith over Alex Smith, bro. Like it doesn't stop.
I remember that too. And by the way, don't forget that Steve Young came here and created controversy because of the Joe Montana thing.
It's the way of the Bay. That's just what it is.
Joe Montana created controversy because Steve DeBerg was here. That's just the way that it goes. You got some Montana years where everything was fine. You got some Young years where everything was fine. You had like 2 or 3 years where Jeff Garcia was a guy, and then chaos.
This comment. What if Purdy's cleared for week 1? Y'all don't speak for the team. You're talking about hypotheticals. We're talking about what's actually been stated and has been announced by the team. So
if wishes were fishes, then the world would be an ocean.
And to be clear, 187, none of us said that Purdy won't be the week 1 starter.
Right.
Not a single person here has said who is going to be the week 1 starter. In fact, all of us are saying hopefully he's healthy and they can compete and the team can then pick one. And it very well could be Purdy. But your statement
the only thing that I've definitively said is that if Purdy is not healthy, then Trey Lance will start over Sam Darnold. And I feel comfortable putting my neck out there for that.
Same. Also, before we wrap up, I just want to say, Ian Rappaport, have some fucking self-respect for yourself, man. Like being used as a journalist to get these talking points and narratives out there, as big of a, like, you're arguably the second biggest journalist in the entire NFL behind Adam Schefter. Do you not have any self-respect? Like, you're just fine being used by these teams to get certain pieces out there? I guess anything for clicks, like Mike said earlier, but god damn, you have no respect for yourself as a journalist.
Let's not let Schefter off the hook because he does that shit too.
He runs things by teams, get their okay on it. That's so cowardly. What's up, Mike?
They all do it. They all do it, and the reason, I'll tell you exactly the reason why they do it is the same reason why, you know, correspondents at the White House don't really go after presidents, is because they don't want to lose access.
Right.
That's why. Because if you're somebody like Grant Cohn, nobody wants to answer your fucking questions. That's why. And I know Grant can be a little grating sometimes, but he will ask questions that definitely need to be asked.
Is the master of getting one-word answers out of Kyle and John. Both of those guys are long-winded. They asked both of them, because it was a joint presser after the draft, why they didn't draft offensive linemen, right? And I put in quotes, and I was what's the word when you like write down what they're saying? Like there's a word for it. Anyway, I was typing it out like word for word, right? Not scribing. Damn it. Anyway, I was taking it down
like stenography. Like a court stenographer. Your dictation.
Not a stenographer. No, not
dictation.
Maybe it's a synonym for the word I'm looking for. But I was writing it down, and I realized how Kyle. I stopped it and just deleted it because it's just a long run-on sentence that I don't think he ever concluded. It was filled with commas and dots, and it was never a complete sentence. Those guys talk so much, but when Grant Cohn asks a question, it's like no. Like they just don't even want to talk to him. Everyone else they'll elaborate on, they'll go into detail, they'll mention other players and all that stuff. They bring them all in. Grant will ask a question and it's a one-word answer. Next. Like it's crazy how they do that, and that's Matt's point, right?
Transcribe.
Transcribing. That's the word I was looking for.
We were going to get there eventually.
I was transcribing what Kyle was saying, and it was just this one long ass run-on sentence, and I was like, "Fuck it, I give up. I don't care anymore." We just didn't get one.
It's just talking around in circles. Yeah. And Mark said, has Schefter said anything about the QB rumors? Listen, he doesn't do it for the 49ers, but Adam Schefter carries water for a lot of people in the NFL. Like that, they all do it. They all do it. Jay Glazer does it. They all do it. And if
Mike
they don't
Silver.
do it, then they lose access. Well, that's the thing. I don't think Mike Silver has access. I don't think Mike Florio has access. I don't think Chris Sims has access any longer. Just because of the way they go about doing things. If you betray trust or you speak for people or you run afoul of these teams, you lose access. That's just plain and simple.
Yeah. All right, guys.
I completely agree. All three of those guys, I think, are on the outs.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here? Draft-wise, undrafted free agent-wise, quarterback-wise, anything we want to touch on we didn't?
Yeah, I think that people need to relax. It's April. The draft just happened. There's still stuff to be done. We're not even at training camp yet. And everybody, again, with, you know, and it's every fan base. It's not just our fan base, but they all have their wild people. It's just the sky is falling immediately. And we haven't even had one squirt of water in a practice yet. You know what I mean? Like nobody's gotten their playbooks. These rookies haven't even signed their contracts. Like, what are we even talking about right now? You can harp on this all you want, but until you get the benefit of hindsight, we don't know if this draft was good or bad for the 49ers. We can try to figure it out, but I feel good that we're in a position where the roster is so good that you could just fill in with just third, fourth, fifth round picks or whatever it is, that you didn't feel the need to jump up into round one. Or, everybody talking about, oh man, they're definitely going to trade Brandon Ayuk this weekend. Well, that didn't happen. Actually, the only thing that happened is they picked up his 5th year, which tells me they want to keep him around. They want to buy that time. Kinlaw, they didn't pick up his 5th year. That tells you a lot too. This is a prove it year for you, buddy. And if you don't do it, you're gone. And I mean, I feel like they already kind of gave that indication considering they signed Hargrave. But again, you have to go and actually play the games. You never know how this is going to turn out. For all you know, there could be injuries to all the Eagles draft picks, or, the Seahawks guys are busts because they traditionally don't draft well in the first round. You never know until they actually play the games. So just relax. Everything will be all right. Yeah. Wait. Ho. Will y'all be okay with Trey being on the practice squad? That will never happen. That will never happen. They will never try to clear him through waivers to get him on the practice squad. Are you kidding me?
Go to bed immediately.
Come on, man. I love having guys in here, but like before you hit send, you gotta read that. You gotta proofread your own shit.
I think that maybe some people don't understand how practice squad works. So you have to cut somebody, and then they have to clear waivers for you to put them on your practice squad. And if the team is fielding trade calls for Trey Lance, someone would sign him. He would be signable to another team, so he would never make
it. By the way, you're not even taking into account that his rookie deal is already slotted. If we cut him, we're on the hook for that. Yeah. They're not going to cut him. I think shit. I'm going to look it up right now. What's Trey Lance's contract right now?
I think it's like $10 million post July.
Let's see.
Big Pop asks what we're going to do with the money freed up by restructuring CMC. Hopefully they bring in a guy like Ngakoue, pass rusher, Robert Quinn.
If they cut him pre-June 1st, $20.1 million dead cap hit. If they cut him after June 1st, $14.6 million dead cap hit. That's not a thing.
Yeah. Mike, anything to add before we wrap up here?
Yes. My overall takeaways from this draft, positions that won the draft for the 49ers, positions. I'm going to say the offensive linemen, the wide receiver positions in particular. I, for one, would have liked to see them bring in some more competition for the guys already in the building. And the fact that they didn't really go out there and do that speaks volumes, and it should provide a lot of confidence for the people in the building. On the offensive line, I'm talking to you, Jalen Moore. I'm talking to you, Colton McKivitz. I'm talking to you, Jake Brendel. You guys should have a big boost of confidence after this draft. In the wide receiver room, guys like Danny Gray, who everyone says is in the doghouse right now, right? Guys like Danny Gray, his confidence should take a step forward. Even guys like Ray McLeod, you should have a step in the right direction. This is a boost of confidence for you guys. The team's lack of investment in that position during the draft says a lot about what they think about you guys. Don't let them down. Don't let us down, but more importantly, don't let yourself down. Take advantage of this opportunity that the team is giving you. All right. And when it comes to the draft overall and the prospects here, what makes a successful draft for the 49ers in 2023? If we can get three to make this roster, it's a successful draft. With the team being as loaded as it is, and we've talked about this multiple times throughout this episode, with this team being as loaded as it is, 21 of 22 starters returning, you drafted a kicker that should make this roster. Other than his leg falling off, like it's going to take that happening in order for him to not make this roster, right? He's going to be in here, right? And then you got the safety. I mean, hopefully Jair makes it, right? Hopefully he makes it. If you can find one more guy, I understand that it was 9 picks, but you get one more guy, that's a successful draft for a roster constructed the way that this roster is. That's a successful draft. Other teams are going to say, no, that's not a good draft. We're not other teams. We are the cream of the crop. We are the team that's at the top. So we have to keep that in mind when analyzing it. Don't let these other people out there fool you. When other teams go out there with 6 or 7 picks and all of them make the roster, you know when the last time the Niners did that? 2017 when they first got here, and they literally had the worst roster in the NFL. Yeah. When your team has turned the page from that into what it is now, with multiple Pro Bowlers at every level of this team, multiple All-Pros at almost every level of this team, you don't have drafted guys making the rosters. Forget being starters for a second. You don't have them making the roster. So we have to keep that in mind when we're assessing what this team is and what a successful 49ers 2023 draft compiles of. This is going to look bad on the scouts. This is going to look bad on John Lynch as a GM when it's all said and done. How do you draft 9 guys and only 2 or 3 of them make the roster? But it is all about context. And the context is this. This is a loaded team. Don't expect too much this year, guys.
Agreed.
Well said. And I believe that's something similar to what Kyle and John said. You know, we scout and compare them to our current roster. If they're not better than players we currently have, then it's not really worth drafting them, you know? So unless they're obviously for depth, but all right, guys.
And to me, it seems like they're doing the Patriots model. The Patriots will move up to take guys they want. They'll trade back if they don't think anybody's good. So it's just, you know, and that's a good point from Ace Bro, by the way. Only 6 of our starters on our team are first-round picks.
Oh,
6 out of the 22.
I was struggling to understand what he meant by that.
6 out of the 22 were first-round picks. So, I mean, and again, we know that this team drafts well in the later rounds. We've seen that before. You know, worry about Jake Moody all you want, but I guarantee you he'll probably have more touchbacks than Robbie Gould did. I guarantee you that. So, yeah, I mean, calm down. There's the Rams way of doing things, which is the splash signing, and now they put themselves in purgatory for the next 5 to 10 years. Or there's the Patriots and Steelers model of doing things where you're competitive year in, year out. Mike, I know you and I talked about this last time. I'd much rather have that. I'd much rather have 10 to 12 straight years of playoff runs than, yeah, we might have got 1 championship and now we're 5 and 12, or like, you know, 3 and 14, or whatever the case may be. And we've lived that. We've lived that. The 2000s was that. We don't want that again. So I'd rather build sustainable success and have these drafts where it's like, I mean, nothing's really blowing my socks off, but I'm not super upset about it. If the worst that you could get upset about is that they drafted a kicker at 99, which is essentially without comps, like Mike said, a 4th-round pick, I think you're doing all right for yourself.
All right, guys. With that said, we are going to wrap up tonight's show. Thank you, everybody, for spending your Sunday evening, night, depending where you are, with us. Mike, I'm sure the folks already know where to find you, but let them know in case they don't.
Yeah, man, you guys can find me right here, 49ers Hive. If you're watching this right now from the Nothing But Niners page, make sure you guys subscribe to the 49ers Hive page, because I do enjoy coming on here with my guys. So we'll be doing this again, and all of them will not be broadcasted on the Nothing But Niners channel. All right, this will probably stop for regular season shows, but during the off season, in hopes to bring some of the Nothing But Niners crowd over here, I'll happily do it. So make sure you guys are subscribing over here. That is all I am going to promote for myself tonight.
All right, guys. All of our personal handles are on the screen. Follow the podcast at RGS Pod on Twitter. With that said, Matt, you want to carry us out?
Absolutely. Listen, guys, the draft is over. Don't get too upset about things. There's going to be a big lull between now and, you know, the start of training camp. So pump the brakes. This is a Super Bowl roster. Things are going to get better. With that being said, we love having you here. I hope you enjoyed the draft. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks, Mike, for coming on. Zach, you're the man as always. Until next time, everyone, go Niners.